This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, welcome to the future of real estate. Well, it used to be for 25 years, it was Tulsa's source for local real estate news and information. It is still kind of that, except some of our topics are just really broad. And this is one of those that is. Kirsten Ulrich, my business partner and COO and business coach, to kind of keep me from either talking too fast or talking too long. So always glad you're here.
Oh, thank
Um, the topic today is how to avoid being house poor.
And that's a really good topic because I don't think a lot of people even take that into consideration when they're looking at a new home.
Why wouldn't we? Because we're excited about bigger, better, more stuff. And then maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years into it, it kind of slaps you in the face. And this is why we go through these market cycles of, and I'm talking in a really big picture way. Um, we go through these market cycles of expansion and contraction. Some of that's based on demographics and other things that affect the market. A lot of it is just how we buy and we overconsume. And then all of a sudden, the reality hits, something changes in our life. That can be a medical issue. Our kids change in age. We didn't quite think, what does my life look like in 5 or 10 years?
Right
And
there, Darryl. That's it. We're not looking at, we're staying kind of in the present, which is good to be present, but we're not looking at what is my life going to look like 5 years from now.
you've already got me on a rabbit trail.
All right.
yesterday, I was probably such a bitter old man in this meeting because I wasn't smiling, but I get really intense, and I stop and I just like think about something very deeply, and I forget, like, people around me, what are they experiencing? They're experiencing this crab.
Yeah, exactly.
But we were talking about something, and I was expressing some frustration that I often have when I'm working with the buying public. And this is my open therapy here on the future of real estate as I'm talking through it. But I want you to kind of see behind the scenes, if you're a consumer, like how difficult sometimes it can be to help people help themselves when they're getting too much information from too many different sources, and they get confused. One of the things that I would like to point out here, and this was in talking to my broker friends, is sometimes we focus so much on investment that we forget to talk about quality of life. Now, I am not interested at all in selling you something that is not a sound financial decision for you
Right.
and your family. But you may come to me as an investor and you might say, Darryl, I want to get a certain percentage return, and this is my portfolio. This is what I want my portfolio to look like. Hey, those are hard numbers. I can go through a checklist. We can get that done.
Right.
But there's an intangible part of it, and I'll go back to the whatever uh, commercial it was that was priceless. List all these things that you can get, but the memories or the experience is what is priceless. And in real estate, you cannot, if you're 30 years old and you've got a young family and you're thinking in terms of all this investment stuff and it's only investment focused, you cannot replace the years that you would have with a pool or with a larger yard, or if you're a smaller home, maybe you're looking at downsizing, and you're so locked into taking care of this oversized property that you no longer want or need, but for investment or for financial reasons, you're just deciding to hang on to the point that it actually crushes you financially, then you're you're not looking at the quality of life, and you're not going to be able to go backwards in age. So my point to this is sometimes people will wait too long to buy the house with the pool or the house that's close to the park or whatever it is that they're doing. And by the time they finally purchase it, they only have a year or two left, and they're always chasing after something rather than thinking ahead. What does my life look like in 5 years? How can I go ahead and accomplish this now? And then when you have your goals and objectives cast into the future, that's a really important part.
Yeah.
Not
So
not
let's
doing it today.
talk about that for a second.
Go.
So, goals, right? It is so important for us to sit down with our spouse or with our partner and identify our goals, because that those really become the guardrails for these types of decisions, and they can help alleviate some of the mistakes that we make. That, and when you buy a home and you make that and it becomes a financial mistake, a lot of times, especially in our market, that's not something you can reverse overnight.
Well, and it takes time to build equity. So if you're a flipper, or if you're, say, young and you're okay with living with cardboard boxes with a tablecloth over it for your nightstand, that's okay. Your future spouse may not be okay with that. So there's a time in life where you can do it. But I'll say this whole topic came up the other day when I was talking to a young couple, and they were looking at several different properties. One of them was about 1,800 square feet. The other one was about 1,000 square feet. And we started looking at the things that needed to be done and how much that was going to cost. And they both needed similar amounts of work. And one of them was really exciting because it had more square footage. The neighborhoods were a little different, so we were comparing and contrasting all of these things. But one of the things that I think really resonated with them the most is, I said, think in terms of the ages of these homes and when the repairs actually slow down or stop, and how much you have to put into that. The cost of flooring an 1,800 square foot house versus a 1,000 square foot house, although the extra 800 square feet is great, they didn't actually need it. It was just like a bonus. But that's also a drain on their finances. It's a drain when it comes to utilities. The taxes will be a little bit more. There's usually a larger roof line. So your insurance is higher, your deductibles and rates to re-roof. Your painting costs more. There may be an extra zone of heating and air depending on where you are.
Just overall maintenance, right? So maintaining just annual maintenance on your home, right? Which a lot of people don't do, and you should do so that you can preserve your home, right?
Actually, they do it when they call me out and I say, this is what we have to do to sell it. And then it's like, wow, all this stuff is done and you didn't enjoy it while you were there. And that's one of the things when it comes to planning is making sure you're budgeting in those things that are going to let you sleep well at night and having some extra. Your income will typically, as we go through life, your income typically grows. Your mortgage payment is going to stay firm. So if you're there for years, then you get to have a little bit more income. Your mortgage payment stays the same. Some of that can be absorbed by taxes and insurance and some of the upkeep. But many of us look at homes as disposable. So you buy a brand new house, you consume it. That means the roof is no longer new anymore. 5, 10 years later, when you go to sell it, maybe it's had some hail damage, whatever, or it's just old. You've walked all over the carpet. Your kids have touched the paint and scuffed the baseboards. So it's no longer new. Those things have to be maintained, or it essentially is deducted off of the value of the house because it's been worn. And this is a moving target, because as the market is moving, if a house stayed in pristine condition, then the styles are going to change, the colors, the light fixtures, all of those things. And so the market is growing or sometimes contracting, and the condition of the property is changing based on how you've cared for it. And if you're not having built into your budget those items to make repairs, to buy, sometimes you may be really handy, but have you priced paint lately? You can spend $100 on.
Basically, I'm going to stop you right now just so
Please.
we can kind of recalibrate. We're talking about total cost of ownership, right? And that when we're setting our goals and we're evaluating a purchase, we need to look at what is the total cost of ownership for this home presently and in the future. And that needs to be part of the buying criteria.
So such an excellent point, because in one of our previous episodes here, I was expressing frustration, as I often do, with the lack of comprehension in cost of ownership and upgrades that were in a home. And one of those was tankless water heaters. Yeah. So those they're much more efficient. They're a lot more expensive to put in, but
you always have hot water.
You always have hot water. And guess what? you don't always have to pay for a hot tank. So we
Right.
don't think about it, but that water in an old-fashioned tank is just sitting there hot. And if it's in the house in the summer, then it's producing a little bit of heat that's fighting your air conditioner. So there's an efficiency process here, especially if you have several zones of hot water tanks in a house. The same with windows. When those windows have been updated, your cost on utilities is much less. Foam insulation, which is very expensive to put in, but it will pay out over a period of years. If someone else has put that in, then look at what your cost of ownership is. If you're saving $50, $150, $400 a month on those expenses, you could essentially add that to your house payment and buy more house effectively, or just save the money. So this is the big divide, and it's not talked about much in real estate circles, but it's the big divide between new construction and resale. So in the appraisal world or valuation of a house, something can become economically obsolete or functionally obsolete. And that is at a time where maybe old fashioned houses have these little choppy rooms, and that was really good in the day that they were built because of the way we functioned in life. Today, we've gone to these, larger great rooms, and now they're kind of being chopped up again. But COVID changed some of that as more people were at home. And so you can have a functional obsolescence and an economic obsolescence, and that can be driveways, concrete, that has an economic life of 50 years. Well, it may last longer than 50 years, but at some point it starts to break up and has to be replaced, like my driveway, which I had to replace. And it was a nice long driveway at thousands of dollars. And when you're looking at something like that, you're buying a property that's going to need that maintenance over time, and you have to budget that in. Otherwise, you do become house poor.
So let's talk about that though. Let's just take a trip around a house real quick and let's talk about some of those things that we need to think about, right? So when we're talking about total cost of ownership and maintenance, you've got gutters, right? You've got your air conditioner that has to be maintenance. You've got your water heater, your landscaping. Your landscaping is actually really important because it's much more expensive to go rip out and tear out a landscaping and put a new one in instead of just taking care of it.
Well, and what do you have to do? What do you have to do with landscaping in Oklahoma in the summer? You have to water it.
Water.
That can be expensive. So
Right.
something that is maintainable on your budget, hundreds of dollars can be spent on. You go from a small lot, maybe your typical $9,000 to $10,000. Um, what do we call it? Tract home lot. And you say, oh, I've always wanted to have a half acre. Well, a half acre with a bigger house and now a sprinkler system and all of those things.
Lawnmower.
Yeah. Hey,
Riding lawnmower.
trees. You got trees. If you're going to pick up those leaves,
Darryl, let's talk about this for a second. It just occurred to me, if you're a first time home buyer, you don't even think about the fact that unless you're going to hire your lawn, you're going to go buy a lawnmower, you're going to buy a blower, you're going to buy a trimmer. I mean, there are so many expenses.
this is fun though, until
Yeah.
you look at your credit card bill.
Well, exactly, right? And you don't think about that. And then taxes. So this is the other thing is making sure that you're using the homestead. Um, what is that? The homestead
Exemption.
exemption
Yeah.
to keep your taxes in line, right? So there are so many things that you need to think about when you think about total cost of ownership of your home.
So projecting this into the future, and this is the whole idea, just a discussion to begin the process of what questions should you be asking, what should you be thinking about. If you are a home buyer at any level, many times you're going from your second or third home, but then you're buying your dream home, and you've had experience owning a house, but uh, you're not thinking in terms of, or you're just beginning to think in terms of, I'm buying this house now at 40 or 50, but what does my life and health look like at 60 or 70? So
Yeah, and that's a big one. We have seen this over and over again now, where are so excited in their 50s, right? And I'm in my 50s, where you go buy a two-story home Well, here's the reality of that matter. At some point, unless you stay an athlete until you're 80, you're not going to be real mobile going up and down those stairs. And 80 years old is a really tough time to be selling your house and buying a new one or making other accommodations. And so that is critically important. I cannot stress that when you're in that 50 range and you're buying a home, you really have to look at, unless you're going to sell it in a few years, what is the long-term viability of this home for me?
Kirsten, that's an excellent point, and really makes the whole topic of this can be your life plan. So start early. It's whether you've owned your first house or this is possibly your last, you can still be thinking in terms of what is my life plan with real estate, because real estate isn't extremely liquid. Sometimes you can sell it in a fire sale and get it sold quickly, but you want to make the most of it. Help your realtor help you make the most of it by having these conversations. It's just like your tax planning and everything else. My meeting right before this was talking about DSTs and Delaware statutory trusts, and how you take large amounts of money when you're retiring, put it into something that will pay you money, and also like a monthly check, and also appreciate at the same time. And these are all tools that can help real estate work for you, but you have to think about it, have to plan ahead. And the last thing you want, we'll close with this, the last thing you want is to be making emergency forced decisions in real estate, because it removes your options. You only have the options of what's on the table at the moment with the economy, with the interest rates. But if you're planning ahead, there are all kinds of things that you can begin to speculate on, make
Just be smart.
agency plan,
Smart with your money.
have a B and C plan, and we'll help you with that. That's what we do at the Baskin Real Estate Specialists. And having been through a lot of different cycles in the market, from crashes to real boons, it's fun to plan and talk about, and that's what we like to do. So listen, thanks to our sponsors, Window World of Tulsa, Integrity Title and Closings, and First United Bank, First United Mortgage, technically First United Bank Mortgage. You'll see them always attached to our stuff. Good people to have a conversation with, and you don't have to buy or sell to be able to begin these discussions to see what's best in your future. And last shout out to Eden's Drilling. Gosh, those people have been serving Tulsa and the Tulsa metro area for decades, since I started in real estate. So those are the ones you can trust. All right. Thanks for watching. And DarrylBaskin.com. One address, thousands of homes. Make sure you catch us online. See you next week.